This is our Observer Appreciation Day. We would have liked to have done this last year and the year before. All the governmental budget issues just didn't allow for that. We planned for it each time, but it just wasn't going to happen. So when they finally said there is some money, we had to really schedule this quick. When you saw the emails come out, probably from Matt, they were fast and furious, and hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do, because we didn't want the government to shut down and get on us. Especially when we get into September, you can do what the governmental end of fiscal years, they don't want you spending any money. It's a real hassle. So I'm done complaining about that, but I'm glad, again, that you guys can make it. Do you mind if I go around the room and ask everybody to maybe provide your name and where you're from? Start with you.
Tim George from Groveland. This is my daughter Maya and my daughter Melina.
I'm Ron Menold from Morton.
Al Henricks, Decatur.
Earl Cully from Jacksonville.
Aaron Atwood from Jacksonville.
Shay Cohan from Pana.
Joe Niederhofer from Centralia.
Dale Gruppe from Galesburg.
Bonita Balding from Olney.
Wyndon Balding from Olney.
Linda Simmons from East Peoria.
Harold Simmons, East Peoria.
Dan Craig, Congerville.
Tim Craig, Congerville.
So everybody had at least a half-hour drive.
Yeah.
So I really can't give out the shortest drive here award, which is going to be nice. It's a huge award. It comes with cash advances of $100 plus. It's been Walmart. Okay. I'm Billy Ousley. I'm the Data Acquisition Program Manager here. One of my jobs is overseeing the observation programs, being cooperative program, CoCoRaHS, SWOPE, helping with spotter talks, etc. And some of you I know just by looking at your face, others I do not. I'm from Morton. Actually not too far from where Ron lives, about a quarter mile maybe or so. With that being said, when I was saying, I oversee 3 or 4 different observation programs. They're all very unique, and some of you probably belong to 1 or 2 of them. Most of you are in SWOPE, I'm sure. All of you are in SWOPE. The others may belong to the cooperative program, the CoCoRaHS program. If at any point later on you want some information on those as well, feel free. One other thing I do want to mention to you is we are taking some pictures of this today, and some Chris may even be in the background there. Chris Skillhart, he's one of the forecasters here. I may take any slideshows for YouTube functions, or
I'm most likely Twitter and Facebook.
Okay. So I would want to make you aware that if you're wanted by the authorities, they show up there. So Chris actually will probably have these on there before the event's even over. So take a look, and I think with any luck, you guys will have some fun as we do this. It'll be informative, and we feel like we will have shared what we do and what we do with your information, and probably give you much more insight as to why you're doing it and how it's utilized by us and how it's utilized by the local community as well. So, does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay. Again, at any time, if you need to go to the restroom, please go. If you want donuts or go back and get water, it's not a problem. And while I'm going through this, this is going to be a rather straightforward presentation, but I'm not sure who has and hasn't seen it, but I wanted to show it either way. So as I'm going through this, if you have questions, let me know. And I'm sorry I have to stand here. Normally I stand in back, but I cannot figure out which remote is working. Okay. By the way, we call it the Weather Observer Appreciation Day because we had groups of different types of observers, mainly SWOPEs, which is what this primarily was focused for. We've never been able to show, or say thank you rather, to our SWOPE observers. So this is what it's all about, but we knew we had to include the others as well because all the reports coming in are equally important. We appreciate everyone's efforts, time, and patience at times with us. I'm not going to read things off to you. I'm just going to kind of continue to describe this. So it's a welcome to everyone. We appreciate it. We'll probably be in here 20 to 30 minutes. I think you get credit for that if you're in jail time. Some people consider it jail time when they spend it in here with me. So, our warning operations. Did I do that right? Yeah. Description of our warning operations. We use the real-time reports, the data coming in from all sources, SWOPE program, co-ops, CoCoRaHS, what we derive from our upper air, which is one thing a station you'll be going to as well, outside and in here, to baseline our products, to ensure that what we have, what we're looking at, and what the models are saying as well are all quality controlled and in agreement with what we think is happening. So. Here's an example of one of the OBS coming in, Astoria. Is anybody in here from Astoria? Somebody is from Astoria today, but I can't remember who it was. They may report penny-sized hail. Radar shows strengthening. And we decided to issue a severe thunderstorm warning downstream for her. That was an example. And it goes the other way too, though. There may be times when the radar is saying it looks like warning criteria. It looks like hail may be larger than that. But we need that ground truth. Always the ground truth takes precedence over anything else we're seeing. And what we put so much emphasis on are trained observers. We allow for public reports to get in, but by far, anybody in this room, your report has much more added weight than anybody else, than any public report does. It's no put down on the public, not that they don't know what they're seeing, but you guys know what to look for. So whatever you say is usually what we go with. We get all sources. This happens to be a picture from Champaign of street flooding. Warnings issued. Could use, as I showed there, flash flooding verification. Rainfall measurements. I don't know how many of you visited our website. I'm not going too deep into this because we're going into it out there. But it's a reflection of your reports either being, we're associating that with what we're seeing in this drop or fall, or to what it's going to be forecast to be. Very important. Now, that's the one thing that's probably overlooked by everyone in the public more than anything, is how much, there's a lot of rivers and streams and such that flood in the area. So everybody always thinks of the Missouri, Mississippi, and the Illinois, but there's so many other rivers around the area. About 300 members currently. We really can't get enough observers. I know when I started in this business, somebody I worked with hydrology said, "I'll never tell you no to an observer." The same thing doesn't hold true for climatic programs, because if you have too many in a spot, then what happens is, if they differ a bit, which one do you take? At some point, you got to have an official reading. Is what it comes down to. When it comes down to precipitation and for warning programs, more is always better. Still need more observers. Our big point of emphasis will be always to maintain the best possible communication between us and the groups and the individuals as well. So they always know what we're doing, we know what they're doing. A little bit about what we do. We have Doppler radar, satellite, upper air, which we'll go over. Well, all these points we'll be going over to a degree. That is, they look actually inside the Doppler radar. Ours stands about 100 feet in the air to the base. One of the higher ones, some go just a little higher, some are a little lower. To be honest with you, it's in the worst possible location for us if we have upper air runs. Primarily in the wintertime, our winds are from the northwest, in the summer times from the southeast. So we have a radar tower to the southeast with the northwest winds. We're constantly trying to maneuver around that, and we aren't always effective at that, unfortunately. So what that means is missed flights, bad data at times, so we have to be very careful. And in the summertime, with southeast winds, we'll end up with these communication towers. Although they're very narrow, when a string hits it, it just ties and wraps around it, and you forever and ever have a saw standing, or sitting, I shouldn't say forever and ever, but for quite a while until somebody can climb that tower. The embarrassing thing, though, is when, and I've done both of these, when you hit those, you can't get to it for a while. I've hit the tower, it actually got over the tower and hit the antenna, wrapped around that. There's about 25 knot winds, so it strung the whole thing out across the roadway for the next 24 hours, or 36 hours actually. So I got to come in for 2 more days and see that thing just floating across the roadway there. It's embarrassing. There's nothing I could have done about it. That's what I say. But still, it's rather embarrassing to see some of your work up on a, I'd like to say a pedestal, but it wasn't that way, quite frankly. Okay. Thanks for some reason. Radar. This happens to be the event from last November. It was Washington. I think there's another slide with this. Okay. What I'm just trying to illustrate is it was November and there was a lot of activity that day. And there was a lot going on. It was a very unusual day to start with anyway. The actual activity was for, before I got to Washington specifically, it was right over in here. It was a very unusual day. Anybody who was outside that day? I was happened to be working on my trailer. I was up on a ladder. I kept hearing didn't really sound like thunder. It just sounded like it was in a bowling alley. The ball was just continuing to roll down the lane. It seemed like about 15 minutes, maybe more. I got down off the ladder I was on, which was on the trailer, really. I finished what I could as quickly as possible because I just knew that was a little odd. And when I went inside after a bit, I started realizing things weren't working. So communication was lost. I couldn't get into the office. I was calling them to see what was going on, but communication was lost there. And so I thought, well, I guess they haven't called me. There's really not that much going on. What I didn't know, though, because a little later I'd taken my wife, so let's go get some lunch and do something. I didn't know all the entire power, except for where I don't know. Did you have power that day? Ron?
We did right in our along our street, but you know, that night most of the town was still out. You know, so most of the town, you know, had lost power most of the day, and it was a full moon that night. And it was really eerie driving around with this bright full moon, and the whole town was dark.
I had no clue because on my side we never lost power once. So when I got her and we went out to eat, nothing was open. I didn't know, you know, the gas stations, the grocery stores, etc. So I felt certainly behind the curve there, realizing that everybody went through all this stuff, and here I was just happy. I'd go out and get something to eat, not realizing, because at that point I didn't even know Washington had been hit. I just knew it was an odd day. Yeah.
I have a nephew that completely lost his house in Washington. The only thing standing above the floor was a dishwasher or one appliance. Took everything else.
That proves to you that the power of these storms is throughout all seasons. Take them seriously. Matter of fact, my wife was going to go to church that particular morning, and I told her, I just advised her that I'd looked at something before everything happened. I said, I think maybe you should stay home today. I'm not really sure you should go. And I'm glad I told her that because it was right behind the church. She's over here in East 74, but through here. And there was some damage over in that area, and I can imagine all those cars trying to exit from the church that she would have gone to rather.
We had damage that day.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're Groveland.
Northwest of Groveland, yeah.
But it was a very eerie day.
And my nephew was down in Donnelly that day, and they were on their way back up. And some friends called them and told them their house was no longer there.
Yeah, how do you, especially that time of year. And I'm trying to remember, I'm pretty sure right after that it got really cold, really windy, and then rainy also, so it was muddy, and then the snow started, and then our winter set in, and nothing, it just set in and stayed here. So many times I've given winter observer training, and I always tell them about how to take snow ops. I was also saying up to about 2 years ago that it sounds like a lot, but how often do you really take a snow observation? Maybe 5, 6 times a month. Oh, well, that was blown out of the water. Taking it every day. That past winter seems like it. There was a lot of snow, coupled with, it was record snow coupled with record cold. Usually you'll have one or the other, but we had both ingredients, which made it pretty unfortunate for us. As much snow as we had, which we were at around 50 some, I'll say for Peoria it was 55 inches, something like that. The friend of mine who used to work here, he's now in Buffalo, and they had their normal 100 plus. But what surprised me, I'm just bringing up another area altogether, because you don't think about it, but if we have a new person who arrived in from Flagstaff, and they average 101 inches a year of snow. I would have never thought that in Flagstaff. I know they're upraised, I thought the dry air would be a little harder to do that, but not 100 and some inches. It's that fluffy snow, so it's not the same, right? This is how the radar works. It's pretty basic. Just the bouncing off from a signal. I like to describe it as when you're standing on the side of the road and there's a car approaching, maybe it's hitting its horn, and how it sound is changes as it gets closer to you and then as it goes away. That's a better concept for me to use, which is exactly the same with how the radar works. That was an E4 tornado in Washington. And what we're trying to reflect here is the crosswinds, which cause circulation. Going into this, weather balloons, and you'll see this again in a bit. We derive a lot of information from the weather balloons, and I wish I could remember, and I hope Eric puts up the flight from that morning, but it had to be a really good flight showing some moisture in the air, some dryness up above, and the directional flow of the winds. But a weather balloon, as you see this, that's how it's inflated here, about that size. That's not the life size, but that's about that size. And it's probably 5 feet across diameter. We go up about 20 miles, and it's going to end up at 100,000 feet. It'll be about like 2.5 rooms of a house. But that wide, at least a little wider than this room, or as wide as this room right here, before it finally bursts. So they really get big. From that, everybody looks at the balloon and ooh and ah, but what really is important is the package that goes up with it. We have the radio sonde. It provides us pressure data, wind data, temperature, dew point. We're able to, from that, we're able to ascertain changes in the atmosphere from the previous 12 hours. When we send these up, they also go up at 69 other sites across the contiguous U.S. here. Okay. Alaska, Puerto Rico, and in the Pacific as well. But we try and do them all at the same time, therefore you have that snapshot of the atmosphere and what's going on there. You wouldn't want to all do it at different hours, because trying to cobble that together would be kind of rough as far as, but what it does show you is what's going on at 00, 12Z. For us, it happens to be in the summertime, but what's going on at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So, unfortunate times to be releasing in the winter months. Actually, we release at 5 a.m. in the winter, so that means we're getting up pretty early for that. But it's a good bit of information is derived from this that's used within all the models that you see on TV and that we use out there. But if it's bad data going in, it's going to be bad data going out. So our job is to make sure it's the best possible data. So we use this in addition to what you have, surface data you provide with what we have here. This is a view from above. This was actually taken from the group at the Adler Planetarium up in Chicago. They release them as training balloons, as training soundings, if you will, for some of the staff and crew there. Actually, they came here to learn how to do it, and it was very interesting talking to them about what they've done. So they add their camera to this, and as they go up and above Chicago, and this is about the time it bursts. I have a YouTube video of it bursting. And then they've tracked it all the way to the ground, which we can do too. We could track these all the way to the ground and go get them if we wanted to, but you have to hire another 2 or 3 people to do that on a regular basis. So we put our address on there, and somebody was saying they picked up one not too long ago, somebody in one of the groups. But we have an address on there, and in the bag, you use basically drop that, put it in the bag, and drop it off at the post office. Unfortunately, it's not very big. It's very small. We used to have, they would be about this size here. Much easier for people to see when they're out walking around, or in this our area we're in, farmers, they were able to see them. We would get back about 25 to 30%. We're down to about 7 to 8% now because they're so small. People either don't think much of it, or they just plow it under, or they leave it sitting on the tree because you just don't notice it that much. Most of ours end up, it's seasonal, and I don't have the slides for this, available, but I have a slideshow that shows you exactly where they burst at and where they land at. And from where we're at here in Lincoln, as you look, actually be that way, for the most part it goes from the northeast, those counties there, over into the southeast, and it flows back and forth across the seasons. Now depending on how high it gets, I've had some end up over in Pennsylvania, it gets them caught in the jet stream, and they'll end up there. But most of them end up within 50 miles from here, I'll say. But with that being said, there's a lot of interesting stories that unfortunately I've been part of some of them and some of them not. But after 9/11, they're not a funny story, but one of these landed on the tracks on the East Coast for an Amtrak. It was just after 9/11. They shut down the entire system. I don't know if it was, I don't remember the exact location. It was nearby New York, though. But they shut down for I don't know how many hours so they could figure out what actually had fallen there, and because of terrorist activity. Same thing on the East Coast, or excuse me, the West Coast of Seattle. Exact same thing. They didn't know what they had and brought in bomb squads and whatever they had to do. A more humorous note, though, here, I think it's Vermilion County, one of ours dropped into a pen where some horses were, and scared the horses. They jumped the fence, broke their leg, and we had to pay for the horses. Which, you know, how do you plan for these things? You can't. We've got a parachute attached, but that doesn't mean anything to a horse. It's still scared. The funniest one I ever heard, and it is true, was in Texas. The guy was actually traveling on a donkey or a mule. I can't remember which it is now. Unbeknownst to him, this thing falls out of the sky, hits him on the head, and knocks him off the donkey or mule, knocks him out. So he had a nice lawsuit against us for that. But you can't plan for these things. But I do tell everyone when they are sending up balloons, make sure that parachute works, because you don't want to be the one that either has a humor story attached, or maybe it hits a car traveling down an interstate. But either way, be careful. This is what I say.
How big a square is that little box now?
It's probably about the size of the hand. Not very big at all. This still protrudes from it, but it's about the size of my hand. This would be the temperature sensor up here, and the relative humidity, and inside, just a small battery now that we have. We used to have to activate them, and it would be very time consuming, and you'd have to take environmental measures for that. Here's actually the envelope to mail it back to us. And the address is on the back side, and there is a pressure sensor in the middle.
Do you send one up every day, like even when it's just high pressure and there's nothing interesting happening?
Twice a day, because from that, it's just like when we ask people to give us 0 precipitation readings. It's still important, because we need to make sure everything stops and starts, and also for drought purposes. In this case here, always so we can cobble together exactly how this picture takes effect from not only Midwest into the East Coast and through the Atlantic, and back and forth from there. I gave you the numbers for what we send up. Mexico also sends up some. Canada sends up some. There's just so many fewer of them in those locations. And of course, across Europe they do too, but I never really mention them because we're the leader in this area by far. You can have the seat, I'm sorry.
Oh, welcome.
That's the view from the one we were looking at about 17.2 miles up. That was a max, and it was over, I can't read from my location here, read that. That's the approximate location it was. There's Streeter, and I can't read the rest of it, we're so close. But very interesting when you look at the profiles, and we'll be showing you those actually when we come back in here with Eric. Forecasting the weather. Observed weather is important. I've already mentioned model data. Forecaster experience is extremely important. As I mentioned, we have a new person in from Flagstaff. Very smart guy, very intelligent. You know, don't put down on him, but he has to learn local weather. You can't just come in and say, I know how to forecast. And assume you know about more than the locals do. That's why we actually use a lot of what some of the people say in the room. You wouldn't believe it or not, but some of the things that people suggest as far as local terrain, maybe. We don't buy into the river effect, stopping storms from hitting Peoria. Tornadic activity. That's been disproven a couple times nearby. But we do listen, and the new observers, we bring them into local effects that will counterbalance anything else they've learned as far as strictly forecasting. And collaboration with other meteorologists. That's a big thing. Between offices, nothing worse than you as a customer to look and you see a report for, a forecast for your area, and then you look just upstream or something, or downstream, and you see warnings or watches. It's very confusing for the customer. So we try and work hard with other offices. And it takes a little bit of effort at times. And we try and work with them to come to agreement so we won't look foolish going from one area to another. Maybe you're a traveler and you're going from Davenport to here and we're not in agreement and you're going from what they say is going to be good weather to foul for us. That doesn't help you at all. You need to know what's going on. So we do work hard towards that, and we're getting better at it, I think. Incidentally, that's why you'll also see differences with the Weather Channel. You'll see these blends. They usually have really pretty pictures. They blend everything so much. Sometimes they overdo it to the extent of where the severe weather is going to be or not going to be, or the rain's going to be or not going to be, that you really can't tell sometimes. But they have to, at some point, they have to make it look cosmetically effective for them. Different ways you can pick up the forecast, the detailed forecast. This is the one I'm still so used to, this and this. And after so many years of just reading the text, I know what I want to look for as a customer. I'm speaking strictly as a customer. I still look at this one. But these other ones, and he'll be going over that out there. So many other formats you can look at to pick up weather for you or the location you're interested in. Specialized services for rivers, aviation, Great Lakes, fire and weather and controlled burn operations. What I'm saying there is we are trying to specialize more in what the needs of the customer may be. We work because the state capital is within our boundaries. We are the primary weather forecast office to serve them. We send down during any type of events that may be severe or hazardous to the public. We will send somebody down there as a liaison. Most often it's because of flooding. But, so we'll send our hydrologist down there. But hazmat, search and rescue, major sporting events. Actually, there was support for the NATO summit in Chicago too in 2012. Okay. It's the different and various warnings that we put out. There's the difference. There's a watch. Warnings. Watch the large area there. Warnings. Just where something may occur. It doesn't mean it's going to occur in that watch box. Matter of fact, it could be outside the watch box, but in and around there's a possibility. So, again, from what we saw in November, people listen for quite a while, and then it starts to dovetail off because people go on about their business. But it's important to always be aware, though, of the chance for severe weather, significant weather. Typically, Illinois. The numbers are there. What I derive from that, though, is we have every form of weather. What's not really noted here, in my opinion, is we still get effects from hurricanes. Several times we'll get the remnants, which will drop 5 or more inches in certain areas. I have slides that show certainly, I think it's one of our southeast counties, but well, a lot of the southeast counties, but one had, I think it was 6+ inches back about 8 years ago for which storm. But, you know, we still get the remnants, even the hurricanes. So it's a very active weather location here in the Midwest, in this part of the Midwest here. Another thing is, I don't have any pictures of this, but most people don't really associate us with Tornado Alley, but we really are. We've got a lot of tornadoes. We get the pop-up ones and the smaller ones, which are much harder as signatures to see and to forecast for than what they have in Oklahoma. That's no put down on them, but you look on the radar, yeah, that's a tornado. You look here and you go, well, it's really hard to tell. We've had some training exercises with people in other offices and states, and they had a really hard time with our weather because it wasn't that big surplus of signatures that you see, again, example in Oklahoma. But we get a plethora of weather in our area. This is probably one you guys have seen, but I'm going to go through these and ask you what you think the top, once I get past 4, ask you what the top 3 may be. But our types of weather and deaths over that period that it's illustrated to the top. Lightning. Lightning is the only thing that really gets my attention. I have a feeling I'll know something about a tornado and I know where to look. And most of you probably do too. We've got so many media to help us with where it's maybe coming from. Lightning is the one thing I have no control over whatsoever, no matter where I'm at. And I will not be outside with lightning. I just don't want to battle my tombstone, I guess, you know, electrified, you know, through stupidity. But it can happen and kill anyone who doesn't care. High winds, snow and ice storms. Floods. Anybody have a suggestion for 3? Locust maybe?
Heat.
Tornadoes.
Hmm.
Then 2 and 1. Somebody said heat. Heat and extreme cold. People just don't, they always think about the tornadoes or flooding, but it's heat and cold. Most of this came, I think it was 1995, and somebody else might remember. It really killed a lot of people in the Chicago area especially, but if I'm not mistaken, Philadelphia, Detroit. It was just a terrible, terrible heat wave, that particular one. Any questions on that? That was something we put together because we weren't sure how we were going to handle the groups. We weren't sure how many people were going to show, so we said, well, if we have to break it up, we'll have to have something in here. I want to give you an overview of what this office does, what the Weather Service does, and what you do, and how it's kind of utilized in our system. We'll go much more in depth when we go up there. I want to see if he's ready, but this is our current operations area. It's a little tight in there, the way we've designed this now. We broke it down so that people, when they weren't working what we call operational weather shifts, would be over in a cubicle working either on some research or some other duties that are assigned to them. So, I just don't know if he's ready. If not, we can take a 5-minute break. Let me make sure he's ready though.
I got a question. How many meteorologists do you have here?
Full certified meteorologists we have. You can count them, okay? Give me a second. 5, 9, 15. 15. And support staff.
Around the clock.
Around the clock we have, there's always at least one on, usually 2 at a time, sometimes 3. Now during severe weather, it's a totally different story. You will end up with 12 people out here. And that may not even be enough. On a nice cloud-free day, you're able to break away. One guy could probably do 2 of the jobs, sometimes even the 3 if he really wanted to be, or she. But is he ready, Chris?
I think Eric's ready.
Do you know if he is?
I think they're pretty much done in there.
Okay. But during calm days, you know, people can do other things and keep an eye on the weather at the same time. But during severe weather days, everybody has a specific role. The storm may demand that 2 people be attached to one particular storm cell, and then we may even break that down into 2 other storm cells. We've had 3 major ones on our screens at once that you have to, one person cannot handle it. It would take at least 3 or more. But there's other than it takes the phone calls, and you'll see when we go out there, there's somebody dedicated to your reports coming in and assuring, one, the quality of the data, matching it up against whatever else is coming in, public data, what the radar says, and then moving forward from there, putting out a warning or maybe extinguishing a warning. So, well, how about this then? We will meet in there in about 3 to 5 minutes. You can sit in here until they move out of our way, or if you need to go use the restroom. Do you have any more questions? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure this is a flow here. I didn't mean to hurry anybody, I apologize.
Okay, if any of you guys want to come out in here, you can sit down. I want everybody to be able to see, so. Feel free to come crowd in here. I'm not going to need a lot of room. I got this huge space here. Nobody's even close.
Well, sir.
I'll sit if nobody else.
There you go.
Yeah, feel free.
If anybody else wants to see.
If you need another chair,
Actually, we better.
Okay. And you can see too?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you learned a little bit. Billy gave you a little presentation in there. So now this is the operations area. So this is where the forecasting takes place. This is where the warnings get issued. So this is where all the action takes place. You can see the basic setup we have in here is we have these workstations. And notice each station here has 4 computer screens. And then we've also got a personal computer, PC, with it. So this is one of our workstations. We've got one right here, and we've got one right here, and there's one right over there, and there's one there, and there's one there. So the area that I'm standing in right here, this is primarily for severe weather operations. So on a normal day, such as today, nobody would be over here. This would be only when we have severe weather going on. On a typical day, we've got at least 2 people here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those 2 people are across the aisle right now. First of all, at this workstation here, this is the short-term forecast position. That's Chris Gielhardt. And Chris is working on the weather for today, tonight, and tomorrow. So he has got the kind of the immediate forecast. If there needs to be an update done to the forecast, he'd be the one that would be doing it. He's carefully monitoring satellite and radar imagery if there needed to be a warning issue. He'd be the first person to be doing that. He's also looking at various forecasts for airports around central and southeast Illinois, putting out specific forecasts for pilots. Our other forecaster in the corner over there today is Ed Shimon, and he is working on the long-term forecast. So he is looking at the weather over the next 7 days. So he's putting out what the rain chance is going to be 3 and 4 days from now. So he's working on the long-term forecast package. Our other employee that would normally be here would be at this workstation over here, Eric Laufenberg. He's one of our interns. And some of his responsibilities include the upper air balloon launch, which you saw a little bit about that in the presentation. He's also monitoring data that's coming into the office. So any reports from our SWOPs or co-ops, he'll be monitoring those and quality controlling them if necessary. Also monitoring the NOAA weather radio, the products that are going out and being broadcast on the radio. So that's part of his responsibility. And like I said, in this particular area, this is where the severe weather operations take place. And basically what I have here is I've set up the workstation to show you guys a few products that we have. And I want to invite anybody that if you have any questions at any time, just feel free to stop me and just ask them right on the get-go.
Is this second one here the one that basically what you cover that we see when you send us a rain report?
This right here, actually, you see this bell that's flashing right here? I click that. There's an example of what one of the reports you guys would send would look like. So I could do it again here. This particular workstation, when an important product arrives, such as a report from one of our SWOP members, it's going to alert right here on this workstation. So you'll see the little bell pop up and you'll hear the little alarm. And I did that with the last group. I kind of went in here to the submit a storm report form. I clicked on it.
It comes into our email system too.
Yes. We get two
storm
two
report
copies.
dialects.
So if I just send out kind of a little test message here. Submit that. And in a few seconds it'll pop up on the screen there. As we wait. Trust me, it will. But this particular workstation, I mean, that's where we would see the important notices come up. If we issued a severe thunderstorm warning, or one of our surrounding offices issued a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning, it would alert on that station as well, so that we could see it right away. I did want to point out, I'll take out the radar off here. Kind of wanted to show the area in yellow here, outlined on this map, is the area that we're responsible for here in Lincoln. And we cover an area, Lincoln is right here, and we cover an area that goes all the way down. Our bottom counties include Lawrence County, so Lawrenceville, Richland, and Clay. So we go all the way over to the Indiana border, so from Danville down to Lawrenceville. And then on the northwest corner, we go all the way up to Galesburg, Knox County. So we got it's a pretty large area from northwest to southeast, particularly.
Is there a thought of how that's broken up, or why it's broken up that way?
It's broken up due to the radar coverage. So the radars are generally in the center of that area. With our particular configuration, we've got pretty good radar coverage, except down in the southeast it's a little dicey because we're pretty far away from the radar. But luckily there is a supplemental Doppler radar in Evansville, Indiana, or near Evansville, Indiana, which gives real good coverage to our southeast counties. So we've got that option to look at. Now you can see the bell flashing there, and you can hear the alarm. And you just click it. We click it, and there's the test message I sent out. So you can see it took maybe a minute or so to actually get in. So that gives you kind of an idea. When you guys send a report on the submit a report form, that it gets to us within about a minute. So if you've got some important information to share, it gets to us in a pretty quick manner. And I would also say, too, that I've had some people question about if they just wanted to send a rainfall report, is that important enough to send it via the submit report form? It is. Don't worry about, bothering us with like a half an inch of rain or something. Well, it's really not a bother. So feel free to use that submit a storm report form. Yeah.
Do those go to all the districts or just to the central Illinois?
That would just go to us.
Because I'm Marion County, actually outside.
Right.
Right. I'm in St. Louis, so if I submitted one on your website, it wouldn't come here, would it, or would it?
Yeah, it would come here.
It would come here.
Did it through our website.
Okay. I don't know if St. Louis has that or not.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yep. So, does anybody have any questions or concerns about this new form that we're using? I know there's some changes. It's a little bit different than the eSpotter was.
The email explained it pretty well.
That's it's not a perfect form, and I wish that we could get some changes made to it to make it a little bit easier. And we have submitted to the administrators of the form some suggestions, but we'll see how long it takes them to respond to it. I'd like to have on the section where you're filling it out an option to select other.
I called her at 3:45.
So something to cover. If you wanted to send a rainfall report, you didn't have to fill out, the duration and, put a range in there. Because the way this form is set up, it forces you to do that before you can send it. So that's kind of a weakness. But this is basically a form that the whole Weather Service is going to be using. So they've kind of phased out eSpotter in favor of this new form. I think it's worked fairly well so far. One of the great things about it is there's no password, so people don't get locked out of it and have to resend their passwords. That's a good thing. I like that. Yeah, it could still use a little work. So that's our area of
spell out here color.
concern. And you can see elsewhere in Illinois, you know, Chicago office covers the northwest section of Illinois, or northeast section of Illinois. Davenport gets the northwest section. Paducah's got a little bit of southern Illinois, and then St. Louis in the southwest part of the state. So those are the offices that cover the state of Illinois.
How do you coordinate with the local TV stations and their weather forecasting?
Occasionally, somebody may call us directly from one of the from one of the TV stations. A lot of times, what they're doing is they're kind of utilizing some of the products that we've already issued and kind of incorporating them into their broadcast. So, on a day-to-day basis, we don't have a lot of contact with the media, but they will contact us occasionally with a question, or sometimes with giving us a storm report too. So we do have, there is communication, but it's not on a daily basis. It's not like they call every day and coordinate the forecast with us.
Don't you have kind of like a media briefing or something if you're expecting, you know, really significant, severe?
We do. We have a couple of things. We've got each morning we send out an email to emergency managers for each of the counties and also to the media, and it's got basically an outline of the weather that we're expecting. We do that every day, even if it's good weather. So if there's severe weather expected, we'll put
Yes, decisions for breaking email.
It's a PowerPoint presentation. You can see up here, like today, we've got thunderstorm chances. And it tells you when, and it tells you the impacts. So it's kind of an overview of the significant weather that's expected over the next week or so. And we put this together every day. And it's sent out, like I said, to the emergency managers of each of the counties and to the media. This goes out in the morning, so it helps with their planning purposes. So that's an example. That's today's, correct?
Yes, that's me.
Hot weather returns late next week.
Yeah.
Heat index near 100.
Ooh. That's going to be a big heat wave this summer.
Yeah.
Man.
That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Huh. Summertime.
Oh yeah.
Do you do any other coordinating with any other meteorologists other than those here in your office?
We do. When we're working on the forecast, like Ed today is working on the 7-day forecast, we have chat server.
We have chat rooms in every office has a chat room.
In which we can talk to the forecasters around. We may coordinate with them. And we do that on a fairly regular basis, especially when we have, you know, some big event like a winter storm or something of that nature, which is pretty complicated with precipitation types and amounts. There'll be a lot of coordination with other offices surrounding us to make sure that we're all on the same page, we're all thinking the same way, and you know, to get an idea of what forecast we're going to put out, what types of products we're going to issue. So sometimes there'll be quite a bit of coordination with other meteorologists around. And then other days when the weather's pretty tranquil, there may be nothing. But we do have that option, and we use it pretty often as well. And I did want to mention also about coordinating with the media and also emergency managers. If we do have a big severe weather event expected, we'll also oftentimes do a conference call with them, where we'll actually have them call in to a certain number, and we'll give them a detailed rundown of what the severe weather is going to be, what the timing is, what type of severe weather we expect, etc. And then they'll have a chance to interact and ask questions. That's typically done when Storm Prediction Center puts out a moderate risk of severe weather or a high risk. Anytime that happens, we're normally doing a conference call with the media and with the emergency managers. We can do it at other times as well as we see fit, and with winter storms especially, since they usually impact a large area, we'll do a conference call. So, and I'm sure probably you've seen on our website from time to time when we do multimedia weather briefings, which will be posted on the our homepage there. Same situation. Whenever we have like a moderate risk of severe weather or a high risk, we'll do a multimedia weather briefing where we'll do a little presentation, a recorded presentation for the general public to see, kind of detailing the threats and the timing of what we're expecting. So those are the main ways that we communicate and coordinate with people.
Are you involved with the interactive, I forget what they call it, INWS, where they send out the emails and the text? It's kind of an experimental thing.
I don't have much, I don't have much knowledge about that personally.
It's only allowed for people in an emergency management or public safety positions right now. I say right now, I mean, it's been in testing for like 5 years. It's supposed to be expanded everywhere nationwide, but apparently they don't think it can handle the amount of people that use it. I use it because I'm a government employee. I can use it. It's great because any time of dense fog advisory or anything, that's you put in a zip code, and any time one of our products affects that zip code, your phone just gets a text.
Right.
You can have an alert or not alert or whatever you want it to do. And you know exactly immediately. I mean, we issue a warning, and within seconds, my phone dings.
Yeah, I get it.
It's great. I mean, I'm
ones
so frustrated that it's not expanded to everybody.
Yeah, the ones I don't like are the ones that come in the middle of the night saying it's canceled.
I mean, it won't alarm your phone like the tornado warnings do. That's a different program. That's part of the emergency alert system. It's just a text. You can have that text sound up, whatever sound you want your phone to do, a bomb going off or a tornado siren or whatever you want it to be, but whenever that text comes in, it just alerts you. But right now, it's limited to close partners that deal with public safety, unfortunately.
But that's not something that comes out of this office per se.
It's run out in the western region. There's a server up. I think Salt Lake City has the server that's actually running the INWS system. But once you get in there, this is a list of all the alerts that have gone to my phone since over the last couple of months or whatever. Dense fog advisory was the last thing, August 6th. Tornado watch, severe thunderstorm watch, and stuff like that. But yeah, you set up the alerts, whatever you want to go to the phone. It's pretty nice. It's just unfortunate that it's limited at this point. So, yeah, there's a service description document. So, anyway, yeah,
Thank you.
It's out there, but it just hasn't been expanded yet. Yeah, it's June 2010. Experimental.
Do you have any insight as what the weather's going to be like in the winter?
Oh my goodness, the winter. Well,
we want to know.
The winter right now, December, January, February is showing above normal temperatures and below normal precip.
Yeah, that works.
Oh, that's nice.
After last year,
Yeah, that's a welcome sound.
And that's
below normal
got to be right.
Yes, we hope. Sure. We're crossing our fingers that.
I haven't looked at the outlooks yet, but yeah, it's the first time I've seen them. So above normal.
Above normal for December, January, February. Yeah, above normal temps and below normal precip. If we jump back towards November, it adds a little bit of precip, bringing us to near normal instead of below normal, so looks like November might be a little wet. But still above normal throwing November in that November, December, January.
I hope so.
You were saying good weather versus severe weather. I thought good weather was severe weather. For people that like the weather.
Well, it can be.
Good weather can be boring.
Yeah, the
Good
fall.
weather can be boring.
September,
Sometimes
October,
boring is
November.
good.
True.
Not much of it.
Off the wall right now, what are, and I work in the country elevator with the agriculture community. So we've been watching the El Nino event. What is the current status of that? Is it peaked yet, or?
No, I believe it's just beginning to develop. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's reached its max.
That kind of gives you the mild winter, doesn't it, in this area? Or?
Typically, that's what you saw in that above normal across the northern plains, upper Midwest. That's
El Nino
typical
running.
El Nino
Current
winter pattern.
conditions through August 6th. Yeah, the equatorial waters are off of South America are still pretty cool yet here. You want to see a little bit more slosh towards Central Pacific. But
Yeah, I think it's just kind of in its infancy right now. So
sea surface temperature outlook, it's coming back down towards static state,
Yeah, I see that.
0. So I don't know. The rest of August doesn't look. September, October, November, it's actually expected to cool slightly. I mean, it's not much. I mean, a ½ degree anomaly is not a lot. Strong El Nino is more up in the 1.5 to 2 sea surface temperature anomalies. But yeah, you can see the spread though. You know, it could be up to as high as 1 or as low as below standard temperature. This is standard temperature in the ocean, which is usually like 82 degrees or 81. And then if it gets a little warmer or colder than that, then we could classify it as an El Nino or a La Nina. They look at a large area of the ocean, so it's definitely, well, that's numbers, anyway, so yeah, it's not full-fledged, but it's warmer than normal, slightly.
it's not all that impressive.
Yeah, there's the anomalies. They're expecting, the Central Pacific's going to warm up pretty high, but as you get closer to South America, that's going to take a little longer, towards April or May, before we start warming up. And the winter is when you really get most of the effects of an El Nino. And it looks like as we head into January and February, it's actually going to be a little colder than the average temperature that it normally is. So, La Nina, El Nino is going to hold off, I think, until next spring. Oh no, that's right now. 14. Excuse me. That's right now. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. These are the current conditions. I made a mistake here. This is not a forecast. So yeah, we are. It was a little warmer, but it's not a lot. Yeah. But it is warmer. Yeah, current conditions are warmer across the board from central to the eastern Pacific.
Of course, all that is so variable too. You know, just because we have an El Nino going on, it doesn't necessarily mean it automatically translates to a certain weather pattern. It's just, I mean, you saw how the variability was. I mean, it can be much above normal, or it can be just barely above normal. There's other interactions going on that dictate the weather pattern, so it can't be, it's not a perfect comparison. You know, El Nino automatically means a warm winter. And also, just because it says above normal, that could be like ½ degree above normal or 1 degree above normal. So it could still be a pretty nasty winter and still be above normal, you know. A lot of times, one thing we haven't had around here in a while, and hopefully this above normal pattern doesn't lead to it, would be ice storms.
Yeah.
You know, we've had, last winter was very cold and it was almost all snow. We didn't really have a lot of freezing rain situations to deal with, so perhaps with an above normal pattern, temperature-wise, we might have a little bit better chance of getting some freezing rain situations in the winter. But that would be just a complete speculation at this point.
somebody asked me once, says, what's your opinion of how far out are weather forecasts, somewhat reliable / useful, And I said, my opinion is, over what I've observed, has been about 2 weeks. And, you get beyond 2 weeks and, like I look at the 6 to 10 day forecast and the 8 to 14 day forecast. And
generally, that's fairly.
And, that's just my opinion.
I would tend to agree with that. We don't really have the skill to really hone in too much further out. I mean, we can give projections, and people want that. They want to know what, they want to know what the winter's going to be like now.
But yeah, not actually do any planning on that basis.
Right, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be planning on a warm winter just yet. We can hope for a while.
Yeah, this is the outlook of where, under a stronger El Nino,
that's good.
Warmer extends to maybe the Dakotas, and wetter is, mainly along the south coast. Illinois really is kind of a mixed bag. If any of the extensions occur, it's warmer and wetter, but the strongest signals are actually in these two locations in terms of temperature and moisture.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good map. Where did you get that one?
It's in the Climate Prediction Center.
Oh. But again, that's all, it's all kind of relative.
Yeah. There's an oscillation that occurs over the North Pole that really it drives a lot of it. The North Atlantic and extending over towards the polar regions. And that's on about a 2-week predictability. So when we see cold air surging in different parts around the polar, in the North Atlantic, we can watch the pressure region. Sometimes we can see a cold snap out about 2 weeks. Pretty reliably.
Some of these oscillations will show, whether there will be cold air, and then the trajectory of that cold air. Is it going to come plunging straight south into the central U.S., or is it going to be more of a glancing blow, mainly into New England? So some of those oscillations can kind of give us a general clue of that, about out a couple of weeks, like you suggested.
North Atlantic oscillation, we watch this, and if it gets really negative in the winter, like it's below this average line, we can see a cold snap coming a couple weeks out. This red part is the prediction for the next 2 weeks. So we're cooler now. We're going to warm up. So over the next week and a half, these are trending up. This is in the fall, so this North Atlantic oscillation is not as strongly linked to our weather, but certainly can influence. And so we watch that North Atlantic oscillation. It's a pressure pattern that we watch. Not us, the Climate Prediction Service.
As we attempt to get those forecasts down further and further, because people really want that. They want to know. They want to know what the winter's going to be like. And mainly with the Weather Service, we're working on the forecast just for the next 7 days. So you start talking about a month from now or 2 months from now, that's more climatologists that are working on that. People want to know.
Right.
So I've got the Doppler radar picture up here.
Rest of the afternoon.
I've been pretty happy that we kept most of the rain out of here today. Although it does look like, I don't know if it's raining now or not. Some light, very light showers or sprinkles kind of heading over our area right now.
It's coming close.
Yeah.
You're just entering western Logan County. It's a real thin line.
Zoom in, so yeah, you can see, this is Lincoln where the dot is. So you can see that. Just west of here we got maybe some sprinkles. Which is better than what I thought, because yesterday it looked like, it could be kind of wet this morning. I didn't want that, because we were hoping to send you guys out to see some upper air balloon stuff out in the inflation building out there, if it's not raining. But I just brought up a few products here on the workstation just to give you an idea of some of the things that we can look at. Of course, right here is the radar, the Lincoln radar. Right here is the visible satellite image. Let me move and put it in loop. Not that big of a loop. There we go. So basically what that is just the satellite image from above. It's looking at the reflectivity. So it's looking at the sunlight bouncing off the top of the clouds. So you're kind of taking a snapshot of the cloud cover.
So it looks like kind of a low pressure circulation there in southeastern
Yes,
Iowa,
you can
along
see,
the Iowa-Missouri border
you can
there.
see kind of right in here in Iowa-Missouri border, you can kind of see a spin right in here if you look. Right in there. And that's where the low is today.
Right. And then kind of a dry slot to the underneath it there.
Yeah, you can see a little drier air punching in Kansas City into central Missouri. And for us, we're just totally overcast. Doesn't look like much in the way of sun unless maybe later this afternoon we might break out a little bit. It's pretty darn cloudy for us today. And you do see, I do have overlaid on here these yellow areas. That's actually lightning strikes. So you can see central Missouri earlier this morning had some thunderstorm activity. That kind of moved towards the St. Louis area. It looks like it's kind of dissipating.
You don't have that many forecasters here, and the weather's obviously changing all the time. Is there any regularity in the shifts that you work? Do you work 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts?
Yes. Good question. Yeah, we work 8-hour shifts. We have 2 people here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our shifts generally are midnight to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to midnight. And we also have, for the long-term people, the evening long-term shift goes from 8 at night to 4 in the morning. Data acquisition side, the interns, their shifts are built around the upper air flight. So they go from 4 in the morning to noon, and from 4 in the afternoon to midnight. So there's some overlap between different people, but everybody, we all work 8-hour shifts. And we are here 24/7, like I said, and there's at least 2 here at all times. On a severe weather day, on a day when we've got significant weather going on, we'd have extra people. We'd be calling people in on their days off, or people staying after their shift, or coming in early for their shift, what have you. On some of the more significant days, we could have 10 or 12 people here at a time. Like I said, that's kind of what these workstations are for here. When we have severe weather, we would be positioned here. We could have some people working here, issuing warnings, looking at the radar, issuing warnings. We could have some people over there at that workstation doing the same thing. Even over here, a short-term person could be doing the same thing. So the capability is there to have numerous people looking and issuing products at the same time. So that's kind of makes it a lot more flexible.
How do you make the decision on what warning is out when you have 2 or 3 or 4 people working?
If we have a situation in which we have multiple storms across the area, we can actually sectorize. We can divide the area up and say, I'm going to be looking at the storms along and west of I-55, and you're going to be looking at them east of I-55. And so your area of responsibility would only be this one section. The other guy would be looking at the other section. So that way, we're not doing the same thing, issuing the same product, like looking at the same storm. And we do that on a fair number of occasions when we have because we cover a pretty large area. You know, we're stretching from Galesburg all the way to Lawrenceville. If there's a situation where we have storms maybe up in the northwest and also down in the southeast, that's kind of hard to kind of zoom, you know, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the two areas. It kind of gets a little complicated. So that would be a good example of a time where you may want to sectorize. You may want to say, I'll take this, and then you take that down there. This makes it a lot easier. Or if there's a situation where we've got just a big event going on, we've got a big line of storms that's going to be impacting most of the area, it might be a good idea to split it up to make it easier, because you know, you'd have to be putting out a lot of warnings in a hurry if you were just one person working on it. But if you have 2 or 3 people, it's a lot more manageable. So that's kind of how we approach it as far as splitting it up.
Got the warnings put out from these desks here, or are they transferred over to one of the interns to put it out to the public or to the media?
What happens here is, and I'll push the button. I won't issue. We can issue here. We've got a little button up here that we would push, and it would bring up this little box. And what we would do is we would take this little dot and drag it to where the storm is and get a track on it. See how fast it's moving and what direction it's going. And then here we can select, it's completely selectable. You can pick what type of warning you want. Do you want a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning? You can go down here and there's all kinds of selections you can put, like wind speed, hail size, what have you. So you fill that out and then you create it. And then what will happen is it'll pop up over here on our text workstation, and we can give it a quick read, make sure that there's no errors in there, and then we push the transmit button. And then it automatically is out. It's transmitted, and it automatically goes to the weather radio too. So years ago, we didn't quite have that level of automation. We did have to print it out, and you had to actually get on the weather radio and put the headset on and make a manual recording of it, which is good and bad, you know, because a human actually reading it, you know, you're not going to make any mistakes on the pronunciation of towns, etc. It takes a lot of time to do that, you know. Whereas this, in this situation, this goes over right away. And the intern would check the weather radio and make sure that the product went out correctly and it sounds okay. But it's all an automated process, so it takes a matter of seconds to do it.
Would you say that's one of the reasons that the ability to put out warnings and watches in a more timely manner?
Yes.
Giving people more warning. I mean, you sped up that process.
Yes. Yes. It is. It's quite a bit faster now. And also, you know, because you know we're already operating at a little bit of a delay with the radar itself. It takes 4 or 5 minutes for the radar to go through a complete scan. So sometimes we're waiting for a while before we get the latest information. So there's a little delay there. And then, you know, you've got the human being has to be sitting here and interpreting things and making a decision. So there's a little bit of delay there. And then, so you want to make this actual process as fast as possible because you've already had a little bit of delay waiting for the data and then making the decision. So you want to get that information out as quickly as possible. So this way it's completely automated and it does go out very, very quickly. And even to the radio, it gets transmitted quickly so people can actually hear it. Because there'll be a little delay there as well, you know, before you send it out doesn't mean that people are going to get it like immediately. It may take a little while before they get it.
It seems like maybe because Galesburg's on the extreme edge, a severe storm will go through, then we get the weather radio and warning.
Sometimes it may be because of lack of reports. Sometimes we don't know that a storm is severe until we actually hear somebody give us a report. And sometimes, yeah, we have situations where we're on the border, you know, with Davenport. They may be looking at it and they may not think it's severe based on their interpretation. We could think of a different thing. So sometimes you have situations like that where you're on the borderline with another weather service office. But that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why we have our network of people like you guys that help us out, because the radar is great, I mean, but it's not perfect. There's plenty of times when we're looking at it and we're kind of on the fence about it. You know, well, this is looking pretty good, but maybe not good enough to produce those damaging winds. You know, is this storm going to knock a tree down? We may not know that. We may not be convinced until we get a report actually from. So that's why it's important for the real-time reports from the field from guys like you to help us out.
No, the radar that I have, you
Yes.
know, that on my home computer, like through your website or wherever, you know, looks exactly like that.
Okay.
One thing that doesn't, where ours isn't nearly as good, is if there's a tornado and I look at storm relative motion, you know, ours, you know, isn't nearly as good as, like, you know, the ones you put out. Why is the difference?
Yeah, the color scales, I don't know why they're different.
Because, like, you know, you put out some, you
Can't
know,
see
after
the
the fact, and you know, after
Right.
after the Washington tornado, you know, you had these really neat looking images. You could tell exactly where the tornado was, and
You're better off just looking at straight velocity, I found on, because that seems to have a better color variation. Although you're not getting, you know, the storm relative motion part, you're still going to see the circulation pretty well.
yeah, you know,
I'm talking
ours
about
is,
this
you know,
guy.
ours is just, you know, like there's this big circle of purple around, you know, most of the circumference of it, and then
Now, what's
yeah,
that
you
tell
know,
you there?
in the actual
What's the velocity?
image is not that good.
This image that I brought up here is actually the storm relative motion. So this is telling you the basically the wind direction. The radar picture is right here. The radar is positioned right here where the circle is, and the green area you see that indicates motion towards the radar. And the red is away from the radar. So you can kind of see, I mean, we don't have much precipitation in the area to really get a good look at what's going on immediately around us, but you can kind of see down in here, there's green coming towards this direction. And that's basically indicating the wind direction. The winds today are out of the south-southwest. Pretty light, but they're out of the south-southwest. So you can kind of see the flows in that direction.
So we kind of see that, but yeah, you know, that's much better resolution, you know, than comes
Right.
up on my computer.
Right. Right. And the real benefit of using the storm relative motion is to see these circulations where there's areas where there's winds right next to each other. There's wind going away from the radar and wind coming towards the radar, which indicates a little circulation. So that's what we're really using the storm relative motion for. Obviously today there's nothing really dramatic to look at, but it's raining.
It's raining out there.
Yep.
Lightly.
It is coming down.
Yep.
Somewhat.
Oh, it is raining outside now. Yep. Drizzle or light rain, which we saw there. So it's kind of right over the top of us right now. It shouldn't last too long. We've actually got a nice little break off to the west of us. So we just got to get this little bit out of here and then it should be dry again. Fortunate. Because some of the computer models yesterday were looking like we might have
lot of
fairly
rain.
significant rain coming in this morning into our area, but luckily it just kind of was just to the west of us in Missouri, so it didn't really get into our area. Probably too much dry air in place initially, but you know, this is going to help moisten it up. So tonight, probably, I'd say we'd probably get another round of precipitation. I haven't looked at anything yet. So I think that. So yeah, like I was showing you some of the things to look at with the radar, and I'll show you the upper air flight from this morning. And Eric will show you more about that. Make it a little easier to see there. So basically, what that's showing me is this is the trace, the balloon, the information that the balloon collected this morning, temperature and dew point. So when these two lines are real close together, that indicates very moist conditions. So the relative humidity is really high. So you can see the first part of the flight, as it started to going up, pretty wet, pretty moist. But then you get up in a little higher in the atmosphere, and you notice that line really takes a big jog this way. So the dew point really dropped off. So we've got this big pocket of much drier air, and it looks like that was at about, it's up there pretty high. That's over about 18,000 feet. So that tells me that, you know, this precipitation, the tops of the clouds aren't going to be too high. It's going to be pretty low top stuff today, or at least in our area. So we've still got that dry air aloft. Go back and look. Davenport also sends a balloon up and looks about the same.
Do you send those balloons up at the same time every day?
Yes.
What times do you send them up?
Right now it is 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's everywhere across the country. They go at the same time. So we get a snapshot of what the upper atmosphere looks like. Simultaneous snapshot across the whole country. But locally, it would be 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. We let the balloon go. Let the balloon go. Like I said, Eric will give you a lot more information about the upper air balloon, because he's the one that let it go this morning. He's been here since 4 o'clock.
So at different time zones, it'd be different time, but they all go up
Correct.
exactly.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you can see here's our alarm here. Got a little report out of Missouri here. Popped in here. Not really sure where Knox County, Missouri is, but 1 foot of water on Highway E. So obviously quite a bit of rain fell to the west of us. I haven't looked at the totals.
Down by St. Louis, it looks like it.
So products like that will pop up on our workstation, you know. Important severe weather products like that from offices around our area, so St. Louis, Davenport, Paducah.
Could you show the St. Louis hot air balloon or whatever that?
St. Louis does not have one.
Okay, you said that.
The one in Missouri would be Springfield, Missouri, so we can actually take a look at that one.
I just thought it'd be quite different than what we
That's a
are
good
in.
point, yeah. I'm sure it's going to look probably a lot more moist. Let's look here, Central.
Well,
Interesting.
No.
It's actually
It's
It doesn't have
dry.
that extreme
No.
dry that we have and Davenport had, but it's got a little
Drier in the low level.
bit drier at the lowest levels, and also is still up in the upper atmosphere. So it's not totally saturated.
That's about where that dry slot's at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where it came.
kind of punching in from the west that we saw here, where the skies are clearing.
Yeah, we listened to St. Louis coming up this morning, and about every time they said it was light rain
Yeah,
there all the time.
yeah, I think it's still raining. Yeah, they still got rain in St. Louis. This right here is a display of all of the stations from around the area. So we've got, and I've got St. Louis on here so I can look. And St. Louis's latest observation, they have calm winds, visibility's 3 miles, light rain. So it's still raining down there. Our observation here, the airport, the Logan County Airport is just right there, so we're out the window. Their automated equipment over there is registering drizzle.
Yeah.
So it's actually, yeah,
You see it.
it's actually coming down really lightly. It is registering. Does anybody have any other questions about it?
You may have answered this already. Is that balloon data available on the website somewhere?
I don't know. Is there a
Yeah.
sounding on our website?
Yep.
That's a good question. I'm not.
Yeah, it's under the observation.
That's a good question, because I've been, pretty much all over and I've never seen that.
On the front page, you click on observations and flip the map. And one of the links up here, bird sounding.
Okay,
I
okay,
never knew that.
okay, under observations, okay.
Then the next link below, you can actually call anywhere in the country.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Okay.
Now there, I know the University of Wyoming had that site.
I mean, I follow it up.
It shows in that
You
graphical
can go,
form.
you can show it in graphic, you can show it, actual measurements. Here's the actual graphic.
Yeah.
Some of the various severe weather indices that go with it, how to compose it.
And those numbers in the bottom, that's what, temperature in Celsius, probably?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And the pressure is on the left side. It's a logarithmic scale, that's why the lines aren't quite equal the further up you go. The pressure is in millibars, so at the top, you're at 100 millibars. So that's 16,590 meters. Anyway, it goes up to like 100,000 feet or so. We've got the actual scale in meters to the left of it.
Okay.
What are the curved lines? The curved lines are just various.
It's hard to do.
It's kind of hard to really simplify it. There are various measurement parameters that would be used to detect how the air parcel is behaving the further up as it goes. Now, some of it has to do with temperature, some of it has to do with the moisture level. Basically, the key that we're looking at is the two black lines, one on the left being the humidity and the one on the right being the temperature. So you can see a big gap here in the middle where the lines are really far apart. That's where the air is extremely dry. And then moistens up again a little higher up above that. Usually when we're analyzing the potential for severe weather, we're more focusing on the bottom part of the sounding here. gotta be careful like how fast the parcels are lifting, what kind of energy would be available for producing severe weather.
And also the wind, you can see the wind on the right side there, you've got the wind barbs showing the direction and the speed at that particular level.
That's what I thought the curved lines were indicating. Is the reason I asked the question. I thought it was related to wind instead of something more complicated.
Yeah, there's a lot of information contained on these things. It's not quite as simple as a plot all the way up. It's designed for a quick look. You know, you can quickly look. The first thing that really stands out when I look at it, or any forecaster looks at it, is that dry pocket of air. Is that you can instantly see where the dry air is and where the moist layers are.
How often does it collect data?
As far as how often does it collect data? Well, Eric will answer that for you.
The sun?
Yeah, I think.
Every second.
Is it every second?
Every second. Just 1 second data.
I'm a student at Western, and we got a chance to play with the drop sonde. It collects data every 2.5 seconds.
Okay.
So.
Now we're gonna. The third part of the presentation today is going to be specifically about the upper air. So, you know, he'll be able to show you a lot more in depth about the upper air procedures and answer your questions about that. So, and hopefully, if we can get these showers out of here, we can take you outside and show you the balloon shelter out there and how it's done.
No, it's
Very
they're
distance.
damp now.
Yeah, thankfully it's just barely doing anything, so that's good news. I was worried about that.
I have a question that's probably not weather related.
Okay.
And I noticed your two clocks are different.
Well, this clock up here has got our regular central daylight time on it. It's 10:54. This clock over here.
Sea time, right?
Yes. It's Universal Standard Time. So not exactly military time as you're thinking.
No.
Is that Greenwich time?
Correct. Yes.
That's the time in England, yeah. That's 3:53 at the 0 meridian.
So we're on daylight time, it's 5 hours
5
difference,
hours.
and when we're on standard time, it's 6 hours difference.
Correct.
All the stuff we do with weather is synchronized basically to Greenwich time. So like the weather balloons, even though everyone has their own different time zone, they all launch them basically at midnight and noon Greenwich time.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the other things we can look at here. Of course, we collect all this data, you know, with the upper air data, radar data, everything, and it's all plugged into these computer models, and that's really how we're making the forecast. So I've got one of the models displayed here on the screen right here, and what this is showing is the color scheme I've got up here is relative humidity in a certain layer of the atmosphere. So where you see the blue and the purple, that's where the humidity is really high. So that's where the moisture is located. And then the yellow lines are actually the atmospheric pressure. So the first image that we'll see here this is the initialization. So this is this morning, 12Z. So 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you can see right here in southern Iowa, northern Missouri, there's your low pressure system right there. And all this purple area, that's all the moisture, cloud cover. And the red lines are actually showing the precipitation that the model is spitting out. So you can see the rain that's fallen in Missouri and Iowa. And we can kind of go through, it steps it through in 3-hour increments. So this right here is midday. This is this model's prediction of what's going to happen at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And you can see it's trying to put out a little bit of light rainfall across the area. Plenty of moisture. You can also kind of see where this little drier area was kind of nosing into central Missouri, which you see on the satellite here.
Yeah, I know.
That's kind of coming towards our direction. Never quite reaches us though. So there's by 7 o'clock this evening. And as we go through the overnight hours, by tomorrow morning, it's a very slow-moving system. You can see by tomorrow morning, the low itself is like maybe around St. Louis or just a little north. This whole area is kind of slowly sinking southeastward towards the Ohio Valley. And there's by midday tomorrow. And finally, by tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, the low is kind of down by Evansville. So it's going to take a long time for this little system to work its way through. So even though we didn't get the rain, this initial batch of rain here, it looks pretty unsettled for tonight and tomorrow before it finally pushes out of here.
It may not be as nice long break.
So that's an example of one of the computer models that we have, and there's a number of them that we look at. Anybody have any other questions? Oh, by the time you're ready to go outside, it won't be raining at all. This is going to be perfect.
Start all the way.
Any questions, comments?